Welcome students. In the previous class, we had discussed how France adopted the constitution and the National Assembly formed. But though France adopted the constitution, the situation continued to be tense because during that period of time, Louis XVI made secret negotiation with the King of Prussia because he wanted to recapture the power again. That is why Louis XVI he made secret negotiation with his neighboring countries. Neighboring countries means with Prussia and Austria. You know students, Austria, he had got married with the Austrian princess Mary Antoinette. So Louis XVI and Austria was having a good relationship, during that period of time. At the same time, the neighboring countries also, they were fearing, looking into the situation, what already had happened in France during the summer of 1789. That is how they came together and wanted to hand over the power of France again to Louis XVI. This was the secret negotiation made between Louis XVI, ruler of Prussia, and Austria. But before this could happen, the National Assembly voted in April 1792 to declare war against Austria and Prussia. During that period of time, thousands of volunteers thronged from the different provinces to join the army. Students, this was a challenge to the people of France because the Constitution of 1791 gave power to the richer section of the society, whereas the poor people, they had not got any sort of developments, any sort of benefit from the Constitution of 1791. That is why they were standing with the army. They supported the army and went against the monarch and these aristocrats. People saw this is a war not against the king only. This is a war against the king and aristocrats all over the Europe. During that time, when the people started participating in the war against Austria, Prussia, and Louis XVI, they started singing patriot songs. One of them, that is Marseillaise, which was composed by Rose de Lisle. And it was first song by the volunteers from Marseilles as they marched into Paris. By singing this patriot song, they marched into Paris. And when France became a nation state, at that time, this patriotic song, Marseillaise, became the national anthem of France. In this way, you can see the picture, students, how the volunteers, they joined the army, supported the army, and went against Austria, Prussia, and Louis XVI. But this revolutionary war brought losses and economic difficulties. Students, you know, war always brings destruction. No one has got benefit from the war. Here also, it brought economic difficulties for the people. Because who were fighting in this war? The lower section of the society. The people, those who had not got any benefit from the Constitution of 1791, they were in the war. But they faced a lot of problem. What were the problem? While the men were fighting in the war, women were shouldering all their family responsibility. They were earning for their livelihood. Shouldering the family responsibility was in the hand of women. But though men were there in the war, women were shouldering the responsibility. Still, large section of the society, they wanted to continue the war. Why? What was the intention of the people? Why did the people want to continue the war? The reason is, the people of France, particularly the lower section, the daily wage laborer, artisans, shoemakers, they had not got any benefit from the Constitution of 1791. Because the Constitution of 1791 gave political right only to the richer section of the society. And there was nothing for the lower section of the society. So, that is why they wanted to continue the war. As a result of this, there was political instability in the country. People during that period of time started talking about their rights. Earlier, they were influenced by the theories of John Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu. The idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity, always it was there in their mind. They had not forgotten that. They started talking about the goals of their life, how to achieve that. And also, they started discussing about the various policies of the government. And this political awakening among the people led to the formation of different political clubs in different parts of France. During that time, many political clubs were formed, and among them, the most important and successful political club was the Jacobins. That was of Jacobins. And during this period, women were also actively participating in the political process. You see, I am just showing the image of a meeting when the people, they were participating in different political clubs. This is one of them, which shows how the people were participating in the political clubs during that period of time. Now, Jacobins, it was the most successful political club of that time. You know who were the member of the Jacobin clubs? Are you thinking it was again the people of richer section society? This time, no. The member of the Jacobin clubs mainly belong to the less prosperous section of the society. Less prosperous section of the society means they include small shopkeepers, artisans like shoemaker, watchmaker, servants, daily wage workers. These people, they were the part of the Jacobins. And who was their leader? The leader of the Jacobin was, at that time, Maximilien Robespierre. He was the leader of Jacobin club. And during that time, In order to separate themselves from the aristocrats and nobles, the Jacobins started wearing long striped trousers similar to those worn by the dock workers. You see, this is Maximilian Robespierre. This is the image of Maximilian Robespierre. And during that period of time, the Jacobins started wearing long striped trousers. And this was only to make themselves different from the nobles and aristocrats. Because during that time, the nobles and aristocrats, they used to wear knee breeches. That is why the Jacobins came to be known as sans culottes. Sans culottes, it means those without knee breeches. Because I have told you, the nobles and aristocrats, they used to wear knee breeches. But here, the Jacobins, they started wearing clothes, that is, without knee breeches. Also, the member of the Jacobin clubs, particularly men, they started wearing red cap. You know, red cap symbolized liberty, freedom. However, it was not allowed to the women. Students, you see the image, how the people, particularly the member of the Jacobins, they used to wear this dress. This was the dress meant for the Jacobins. After that, the situation became very tensed. People were totally against the monarch, Louis XVI, and his friends, rulers of Austria and Prussia. On the morning of August 10, the volunteers who were there with the army stormed the palace of the Tuileries, massacred the king's guard, and held the king himself as a hostage for several hours. They killed the king's guard and kept Louis XVI as hostage for several hours. After that, election again held in France, but during this time, the voting right was something different. Earlier, people, those who were paying taxes, men above the age of 25, paying taxes equal to the 3 days of a laborer's wage, they were only having the right to vote. But this time, it was changed. And now onwards, all men of 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. Earlier, people, those who were paying taxes, were only having the right to vote. Now, 21 years or above, regardless their wealth, they are entitled to vote. And this time, the new elected assembly was called as convention. And this convention, on 21st September 1792, abolished the monarchy and declared France as a republic. On 21 September 1792, Convention abolished monarchy and declared France a republic. Students, you know what is republic? Republic means it is a form of government where the people elect the government, including the head of the government. And here in this form of government, in republic, the head of the country is president and the head of the government is prime minister. That is what it is, a republic form of government. After France became a republic, Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. Students, we have already discussed how he made secret negotiation with the rulers of Austria and Prussia. This was the act of treason, and on this, because of this act, Louis XVI was tried in the court and sentenced to death. As a result of this, on 21st January 1793, he was publicly executed at the place called De la Concorde. He was executed publicly at the place called De la Concorde. But later on, Queen Mary Antoinette also met with the same fate. You see, the image shows how Louis XVI was executed publicly. And now France became a republic without any king. And now the power came into the hand of Maximilien Robespierre. The revolutionary leaders, the head of the Jacobins, Maximilien Robespierre, the power now was in the hand of Maximilien Robespierre. But during this period, that is from the period of 1793 to 1794, it is one of the most important period of the history of France, because this period came to be known as the Reign of Terror. The Reign of Terror. Why? Because Maximilien Robespierre introduced different policy of severe control and punishment. There was severe punishment for the people. That is why people were trembling out of fear. That is why this period of 1793 to 1794 is known as the Reign of Terror. What was the policy adopted by Maximilien Robespierre? There were different policies. All those whom he saw as being enemies of the republic, whoever is seen as the enemy of the republic, that was ex-nobles and clergy, member of other political parties, even if member of his own political party who did not agree with his method of ruling. That to understand, whoever, ex-nobles, clergy, members of other political party, and even if the member of his own political party who did not agree with his methods were arrested, imprisoned, then tried by a revolutionary court. And if the court found them guilty, they were guillotined. Now, what is guillotine? All those people who were found guilty by the court, they were guillotined. Now the question arises, what is guillotine? Guillotine, it is a device consisting of two poles and a blade with which a person is beheaded. Two poles with a blade in the middle with which a person is beheaded. Now why it is called guillotine? because this device was named after Dr. Guillotine, who had invented it. This device, guillotine, was invented by Dr. Guillotine. You see the image of the device called guillotine. Through this device, many of the people during the Robespierre government, revolutionary government, were executed, beheaded. You see how during the period of reign of terror, people were guillotined publicly. This image shows that. And this was Dr. Guillotine. This is the image of Dr. Guillotine, who had invented this device called guillotine. The revolutionary government also sought to mobilize the loyalty of its subjects through various means. It means those who were loyal to the revolutionary government, in order to mobilize their support, to get their loyalty, Maximilien Robespierre introduced different festivals. You see, one of the image of the festivals that was celebrated during that period of time, that is during the time period of reign of terror. At the same time, Robespierre government introduced different other policies also. What are the policies? Robespierre government issued law placing maximum ceiling of wages and prices. It means the prices of different items were fixed. During that period of time, meat and bread were rationed. It was not available in the shop. It was available through ration. People had to stand in the queue and get their meat and bread. Besides this, during that period of time, peasants were forced to transport their grain to the cities and sell it at prices fixed by the government. The peasants, they will cultivate, but they cannot sell those produce according to their own choice. They have to sell according to the prices fixed up by the government, and they have to transport the grain to the cities. They can't sell their own area. Rather, they have to transport all those items to the cities and sell there. This was the order of the Robespierre government. Thereafter, the use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. No one can use expensive white flour. People had to use the same quality of flour. That is, they required to eat the equality bread. That is in French language called pain de glite. A loaf made up of whole wheat. It has to be used by all. There is nothing for the richer, nothing for the poor section of society. Everyone has to eat the equality bread. This was the policies of the Robespierre government. Thereafter, equality also practiced through the forms of speech and address. Even if during their daily communication, people had to follow equality in the forms of speech and address also. How? Earlier, instead of traditional Monsieur and Madame, all French men and women were henceforth called as citoyen and citoyenne. That is, citizen. No sir, no madam. All are equal, all are citizen. During that period of time, churches were shut down and their buildings were converted into barracks or offices. There was no religious freedom. You see, churches were shut down and all those buildings were converted into barracks or offices. But it was enough. Slowly and slowly, people started going against Robespierre government also. They wanted to get rid of this system. They wanted to come out of the reign of terror. And even if his own supporter also began to demand moderation, began to demand changes. And finally, he was convicted by a court in July 1794, arrested, and on the very next day, he was guillotined. The way he was killing the people, he met with the same fate. As a result of this, Robespierre government came to an end. Because all those people, even if his own supporter also, they wanted to get rid of Robespierre government. They wanted changes, moderation. And this day came also with the execution of Maximilien Robespierre. You see this image show how Maximilien Robespierre was guillotined because he was the person who introduced this system of killing people through guillotine. And also, you see the fate, he met with the same thing. You see how he was publicly executed through guillotine, and this rule of Robespierre with his execution came to an end. Students, today we have discussed about the revolutionary government, about the reign of terror. Now, just I will take a test about what we have already covered in today's discussion. I want to ask some questions. First, the question is, which period is known as the period of reign of terror? What is the question? Which period is known as the period of reign of terror? And the answer is the period from 1793 to 1794 is referred to as the reign of terror. So the second question is, what is the national anthem of France? The Marseillaise is the national anthem of France now. Students, today we have covered all those parts of the reign of terror, how France abolishes monarchy, become a republic. Next class, we'll discuss whatever the changes made after the revolutionary government. So today's class is coming to an end. Thank you.